Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America. It's always interesting to me to hear a story about how someone's upbringing inspired not only a career, but sometimes even a new business. And that brings us to our guest today. Sara is the founder and president of Agri-Pulse, the ag industry's leading provider of farm and rural policy news. Growing up on a farm in southeast Iowa, Sara had an interest in both reading and writing and was exposed to legislative policy on a state and national level at a young age by her father. These interests took her first to Iowa State University, where she studied journalism, and then into a career writing for agriculture magazines. When downsizing hit home, Sara banked on her experiences and launched her own business, which today is one of the leaders in the industry. And although her professional world revolves around what happens in our nation's capital, her life is filled with living the rural American lifestyle from her home at the Lake of the Ozarks. Learn how Agri-Pulse evolved over the years, what it takes to be successful in a new business venture, and how she positioned her company to be the leader it is. Welcome to Outdrive, Sara.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Cliff.
Well, I've been really looking forward to meeting you and getting to know you and finding out more about your company and what you guys are all about. You know, we have kind of run some parallel tracks for the last few years. You know, we both are involved in the ag industry and in media, and we both enjoy living the rural America lifestyle. So we want to talk about all that. But before we go down any of those roads, let's start by having you tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, great. Thank you again for the opportunity. And I grew up on a farm in southeastern Iowa with three other siblings. My parents were very focused on making sure we had a great education and an early interest in reading all sorts of things. And so I was blessed to be able to have, the Wall Street Journal in our home and a lot of different outlets. I'm the youngest of four and also the only one in the family that I know of any generation that has ever been interested in journalism. But I had a love of writing and a love of talking to people and learning about their stories and being able to share information that really helped propel me into the journalism career I have today. Just fast forward from that, I went to Iowa State University, had an internship with a State Farm magazine you may be familiar with, Wallace's Farmer. And that made me think I could have an intersect between my farm upbringing and my journalism interests and really focus on writing stories about agriculture and later food systems. So they offered me a job right out of school and launched my first career in magazine publishing. That kind of fueled my interest later on for not only what was happening in agriculture, but I graduated in 1980 at a time when the agricultural economy was in a very bad environment in terms of high interest rates, low commodity prices. We've just been through the Soviet grain embargo, and it was a really tough time. People were losing their farms and having a really difficult time trying to keep the families together during those kind of tough economic conditions. And I was writing about a lot of those, and I decided I want to focus on the legislative and regulatory solutions to some of those things. And that led to the first iteration of Agri-Pulse, where I did a product that was published. At that time, I was living in Lake St. Louis, Missouri, took it to the printer and then took it to the postmaster, and I came out every 2 weeks. So that was sort of my early focus on entrepreneurship. As it turns out, once I launched that, the company asked me to come back write some columns on some of the same things I was following out of Washington, D.C., and did that for about a decade while I raised my two boys, and then had an opportunity to come back to Farm Progress and lead all of their magazines. Those at that time, we had about 25. I went to 30 some, almost 40 state farm magazines, including Missouri Ruralist, which I know you're familiar with, Prairie Farmer, all those state farm books. At that time, we went through consolidation in the magazine industry. We were already owned by ABC, then Cap Cities bought ABC, then Disney bought Cap Cities ABC. Disney decided to get rid of the non-entertainment assets. We were sold to Rural Press out of Australia. And then we went through another down cycle on magazine publishing. And long story here, but the part that got me to where I am today is that in 2002, after I had to let a lot of my own staff go, downsize from about 50 to 25 people, it was a horrific time for me to try to right size a company and let talented people go. But we did that, and then the VP level started to get cut, and I was out of a job and did some consulting. Some people said, "Hey, we liked it when you do your newsletter," and relaunched in 2004, all electronic, all subscription, and a weekly digital newsletter. And here I am, 20 years later.
That's a phenomenal story. Why did you choose to focus on the legislative side of the industry?
Well, a lot of people do the agronomic side, how much more fertilizer, what kind of seed, and that sort of thing. And my interest, and partially again, because just my upbringing, my family was interested in following what was happening in the state legislature and in Congress. I think part of it was just the economic times were so difficult, but it was not unusual. My dad would invite our congressman out to the house, come talk about what was going on in Washington, D.C. And I can remember, different members coming out and having those conversations. Being an informed advocate was really important to my parents. And so I think that upbringing helped to probably pick my interest in politics, and it's remained ever since.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, tell us about what Agri-Pulse is all about.
So Agri-Pulse was really created to inform people about what was happening on the legislative and regulatory front in Washington, D.C., and occasionally in different state houses, because sometimes places like California, especially, passes laws which impact the rest of the industry nationwide. So our goal has always been to provide balanced reporting, trusted insights on what is happening, who's making it happen, who the movers and shakers are. And then when people read us, they can take their own political position on whether it's right or wrong, but at least they're informed about how a bill came about, what the regulation looks like, who's weighing in on it, and then they can go be advocates for themselves. And that's been our goal, is to inform and create better advocates throughout the industry.
So, what's your take on where U.S. agriculture stands today from a global perspective? Are we in a good place right now?
Well, there's some troubling signs emerging from last year and continuing into this year. You've seen our very large U.S. agricultural trade deficit. You've seen commodity prices go on a downturn, still above 20-year historical averages. But when you see those high highs and people start to think we're going to see some continuation of prices that can help cover the also high input prices and fertilizer and seed and equipment. So you start to see those trends go up. And agricultural cyclical, and it's going to come back down. And we're in one of those down trends right now. And it's difficult for a lot of farmers to cash flow given the prices that they have to pay. And you can see they're cutting back, and therefore you see big agribusinesses. Deere's been cutting back, Cargill has cut back. So we're in this down cycle, not only domestically, but globally. And part of that is because you're also seeing some of our customers cut back, and you're seeing a resurgence in countries like Brazil, which has an ability to be very competitive on the growing front and traditionally didn't have the infrastructure to really keep up and be competitive on moving product, but now is starting to catch up increasingly on that. So we're in a little bit of a down cycle, but I do believe that agriculture fundamentally in the United States has great resources, has great infrastructure, and has the ability to tap some of the most talented farmers and ranchers across the world. So, we'll come back. It's just a little bit of soft spot now.
Yeah. And I think from my perspective, as I look at things, there seems to be support for what agriculture is all about. I think sometimes people don't even realize what agriculture is, what it does, how big it is. But it seems to me that there is a lot of support throughout the country or throughout most of the country for agriculture and the agriculture industry. Would you agree with that?
I would agree that there should be, but I think there's a fundamental disconnect between how food is grown and those who consume it. Because obviously, anybody who eats should have some connection to agriculture and should have some understanding of what is involved in producing food. But there are millions of people who don't. And I think probably when you and I were growing up, Cliff, I mean, it wasn't too unlikely that either your grandparents had a farm or your uncle or somebody, and you'd be out there and you'd see what was going on, both with crops and livestock. And now we've got some generations of people who have never even touched foot on a farm. And so I think that lack of understanding leads to miscommunication at times. And you continue to hear some pundits talk about, well, we need to really redo the food system. I would argue that the food system should always be searching for continual improvement, but I don't think it's broken. We've got a lot of folks who are producing high quality, whether it's row crops or fruits and vegetables, livestock, all across this country, and they're doing a very good job of getting it into places where people most need it. So I would hope more people would take the time to get that understanding, but I think we're missing some steps right now in terms of that involvement.
So you think it's more about the education and outreach of what agriculture is all about, more so than the industry itself? That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's a lot of different efforts. There's ag in the classroom, there's groups that bring people out on tours, but we've got dozens of new members of Congress who've never set foot on a farm. And they're going to be making policy decisions about everything from the tax code to the farm bill, which we hope can get to completion in 2025. And, they have no clue. So that's why, again, if people want to be good advocates for agriculture, probably starts with bringing more people out. And whether it's your Rotary Club, your church members, or your member of Congress, let him see what happens on a working farm.
That's a great point. It's great insight. Well, as I think about what you do, I mean, there's a lot of work there. How are you able to stay up and stay on top of what's happening on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we're blessed with a terrific team that works really hard, starting with our first product comes out at about 4 in the morning called Daybreak. And so it's available both for people to listen to or to read. It gives people a preview every morning throughout the day. We're pushing out different stories as they're breaking, at end of the day on Capitol Hill, we do an audio feed called Drive Times, kind of a wrap of what happened that day. So just following our own news feeds is important. We have a group of 6 that are focused on Capitol Hill every day, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of agricultural news coverage, we are the biggest in Washington, D.C. that are focused on food and agriculture and rural issues. So having that incredible team is invaluable. And also just being able to talk to a lot of people that will say, they'll ring me up and say, hey, Sarah, did you know about this? Or text, or we have a great network of people that also want to make sure that we get the news when we need it so we can share it with our subscribers.
Has technology made it easier to do your job?
Yes, it has. When I first walked into my job at Wallace's Farmer after graduating from Iowa State, we were still using typewriters and carbon paper to make a copy of the stories that we were writing. And a few months in, I got my first computer and was just playing around with it. And I brought it in the office. It was a Mac. And I had people look at me and, oh, we're never going to use one of those. So, never in a million years. That's crazy. And as we all know how that went. But increasingly, it's, not just that first Mac or the laptop. I had one of the original Apple laptops, which weighs about 8 pounds. It's like a suitcase.
I remember those.
I keep it here just to show people the possibilities. But, now I'm using my iPhone. You can publish on your iPhone. You can get something out there if you really need to quickly. We're using AI in terms of transcriptions in order of making sure that, let's say that we, did a quick interview with Chairman of the House Ag Committee, G.T. Thompson. We can turn that around into both an audio and a digital transcript. We can share it with our team. So for the most part, technology has made things a lot quicker and easier for us to put things together. One other hand of that, though, is that technology also makes it easier for people to grab our stuff off of our website. And we find ourselves sometimes being very protective of the fact that we have a paywall. That's how we pay our talented staff, by selling subscriptions. And so AI makes it easier for people to grab stuff that they didn't write and they just pull it off of what you've spent time capturing. So it's not all an upside, but for the most part, it's made our job easier.
You mentioned the paywall. Tell us how you monetized your work.
So when I was in the magazine industry early on, we had a controlled circulation model, which for your audience, if you're not familiar with magazine publishing, basically you produce a product and you may have a subscription like $5 or something very minimal, but most of your revenue comes from being able to show an advertiser that you can reach a target audience. And so you verify your audience numbers, and then that's how you're able to charge for advertising. I saw how that happened and the pluses and minuses of it. And I just thought, I want people to pay for our good work and go to a subscription model. It's not that we don't sell advertising on our website, but I really wanted to focus on our subscribers. And so when I launched in 2004, we were selling for $249, and we've just gradually increased that as we've been able to add different products, really a bundle of things to keep people informed. And so now we're up to $837 for a year. And that's just been something that has gradually increased again as we've added value. And we're still probably not the most expensive out of Washington, D.C., but we value what we're able to do. We value our access to people who know answers, and we can get those for our readers and our listeners. And so that subscription model has really paid off in so many ways in terms of ability to attract staff and ability to create offices not only in Washington, D.C., here in Camdenton, Missouri, but also a few years ago, we launched in Sacramento, California.
So, do you feel like most people pay attention to the information that you're putting out every day?
Yes, we have people who not only get our daily pushes that we send out with information, but our in-depth weekly newsletter is really the core of our operation. But you'll get feedback throughout the day. I'll have somebody that'll send me, hey, I saw this, but did you think about that? Or they'll be asking some additional questions and wanting some other insights, which sometimes turns into a different article. And so, yes, not everybody reads 100% of what we do. We understand that, but you'd be amazed. We can look at our open rates and they're almost unheard of in the industry. Some of them are 60, 70%.
It's very high. How do people hear about you?
So we market not only through our website, through webinars, through events, through word of mouth, through advertising at industry, different events that we may go through, and also by reaching out to some of our next gen subscribers. We have programs that start out at the college level And so we try to let people know what they can get in terms of a collegiate subscription. If we have a program called For Our Future Ag Leaders that starts in the classroom, college classrooms, and is used as a teaching tool. So we have a wide variety of marketing tools that we use.
So I think this would be a great time to just kind of take a step back. So somebody that's listening that wasn't familiar with Agri-Pulse before today, what would you encourage them to do?
So the first step would be to go to our website, which is www.agri-pulse.com, and click at the top and check out a free trial, and you get a month of what we do for free. There's no obligation. We don't require a credit card or anything like that. And then you just take us for a test drive. And if you want to sign up for as a new subscriber, we give you a pretty substantial discount. And just see if what we are doing is helpful to you and your business. And if you're engaged at all in ag and food, I'm guessing the answer is going to be yes. But, at least you have a chance to check us out for free and see what we can, how, again, we want to help people be more informed. And that's our goal.
So what's the future look like? Where's Agri-Pulse going in the future?
So we do have a very talented team. We've got some younger folks that we're bringing up because we're very thankful to have folks who've had decades in this business, and we're bringing some new folks into the fold. And we're going to continue to look at how we can be creative on some new products. I mentioned our subscription products, which are great, but we also have some free products. We have a podcast called Open Mic that continues to be one of our most listened to podcasts. We have a new show we created a few years ago called Newsmakers. It's a video show where we bring in members of Congress and other industry experts and then some panelists, kind of a meet the press sort of format. And that's being very well listened to and watched now. And our Drive Time podcast has also gotten a lot of attention for folks who are watching what happens every day. Those things people can just jump on and listen to, whether you're on an Apple podcast or whatever format, or just go to our website. But I think over the next couple of years, one of the things that, and again, I pass the baton on to Philip Rasher, who's our new editor as of May 2024. Phil's got a depth of experience. And as he does more and more on the day-to-day front, it enables me to focus on strategy and, as a founder and publisher, look more long-term. And so I'm going to be looking at what are some of those new products, what we might be able to do, and also what are some of the fun things that we might be able to do, because we like to engage in a lot of different ways. And I'd be happy to share one of the things we did last year if you're interested, but just to help people learn, but also have fun while they're learning.
Well, that's a great approach. You obviously have done a great job of positioning your organization as a leader in the industry. And the fact that you're not sitting there status quo, I think says a lot about your organization. I'm excited to see what all you guys do as you move ahead. You've done a nice job of positioning yourself as thought leaders in the industry. So, again, exciting things ahead. A lot of your work revolves around what's happening in our nation's capital, yet you live at the Lake of the Ozarks, which is about 360 the other direction from DC. Why do you live at the lake?
So I grew up coming down here. As I said, I grew up on a farm in eastern Iowa, southeast Iowa, and folks love the water. And this was really one of the cleanest, most beautiful places that I'd ever been to as a kid growing up. The water, as you know, is great during the summertime and even in the fall and the spring. We love to be out on it. And I'm a self-proclaimed water rat, so that's a one attraction. Secondarily, we had to figure out if we could conduct business, and that requires high-speed internet access, which we had internet access when we first moved here, but in the last couple of years, we've worked with Como, a rural electric co-op, and got high-speed fiber, which is lovely. We're zipping through things now. And just being able to have that access is really something that was important to us. and being able to find a qualified workforce in rural America, which, as you know, is not always easy. The lake in the town that we live outside of, Camdenton, is about 3,000 people in fall and winter, early spring. But collectively, the lake area, if you look at all the towns around us, has always been known as kind of like the third largest city in the state during the summer months, right?
Hmm.
Because of all the people from St. Louis and Kansas City and other areas. We just felt that it was important to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk in terms of investing in rural. Now, we're not here on our farm. I still own my family farm. It's a heritage farm in Iowa. My husband owns his Century farm. So we do get out on our respective farms, but in order to live and work in rural America, we decided to give it a try. And so far, we've been very successful to bring in good talent here and to have a place where not only can we enjoy it and thrive, but our oldest son has joined the business and has moved to this area, and that's where he's raising our grandkids. And so it's all worked out very well.
Sounds like a great lifestyle. Work, live, and play all together. So,
Uh,
what's your typical day look like these days?
Well, of course, right now we're covered with snow here at the lake, but normally I'm an early riser. I like to get up and read the headlines. Start out with Financial Times over in Europe and work my way through newspapers, all digital, out to the West Coast, where of course we're watching all those horrific wildfires right now. And then just addressing email and events. We do three large events during the year. One that's going to be March 17th at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., another one in Sacramento, June 10th, another one in September that we do in partnership with the Agricultural Business Club of Kansas City. And then in between, a lot of different speeches and panel discussions. I'm leading one for American Farm Bureau at their annual meeting. I'm doing a panel discussion later this week at the Chinese embassy with some other folks talking about what's ahead for ag and food policy in Washington. So, kind of a combination of just watching the news, trying to keep everything moving and events, and then, of course, managing the business. My husband, Alan Johnson, is our CFO. And for years, he joined us in 2009 and really helped beef up and build the advertising part of the market. He's handed most of that over to our oldest son, Jason, but Al still runs a lot of the CFO duties too. So just kind of never know what you're going to get when you wake up every morning.
That makes it fun.
It does. I enjoy it very much.
Well, looking back over the last few years, why do you think that you're enjoying your success today? What kind of things did you put into place, or what kind of things happened that led to that?
So I'm a big believer that you can make a lot of your own luck, but certainly not all of it. We were fortunate in that, but in 2004, when I was starting, you may have remembered that there were a lot of different folks focused on writing on agricultural policy. When I was at Farm Progress, I had two people full time in Washington. Farm Journal had a couple people. So leading trade magazines, Washington Post had writers that were focused on agriculture, Ward Sinclair. So there are a lot of folks that had offices and they were devoting resources. But when we hit that down cycle of 2002 into 2004, 5, 6, those offices went away, those employees went away. And so as I was re-emerging into the Washington space, at one time there might have been 12 or so different outlets that were focused on ag and food policy, and they just started to dwindle. So a lot of that was just bucking the cycle. And I started with just myself, so not, a lot of investment in people that we have now, but was able to build slowly and methodically. I didn't borrow any money to start with other than a 5,000 loan from a friend, and just continue to find talented folks who wanted to join, had that passion for serving others, had that passion for legislative and regulatory news, and brought them into the fold as we were able to build. And as we did that, then add more products, add more coverage. It kind of grew organically as others were coming out of this space. that really made a big difference. And then, as I mentioned, launching in 2004, my husband had been at USDA Rural Development. When he decided to join full time, that enabled us to focus more on bringing advertising in and then events. So we're kind of a three-legged stool in terms of delivering content in various formats, events, and advertising to help our advertisers get their messages out in front of a very big thought leader audience.
That's a great point, and using the analogy of the three-legged stool, I think is excellent. We've always sort of used that in our business as well, because if you put all your eggs in one basket, we've seen that basket get overturned and people not be able to survive. And so the three-legged stool kind of balances things out. And when all of it's rocking and rolling, it's pretty cool thing. But looking back, you've got to feel pretty good about where you were and where you are today. And I congratulate you on that.
Thank you. I pinch myself lots of times that we've been able to bring so many great people together with a common purpose. And it sort of dates back to there's a photo I keep here in my office. My grandfather Wyatt was giving me a hard time once about something I was afraid to do, and I had a little Shetland pony and a colt, and he said, if you can lift up your colt, then you can do anything you want to do, Sarah. You just have to lift up your colt every day. And so I have this photo here in the office of me with a little rope halter on my little colt and holding it up. I was about 5 years old. And it's sort of a reminder to me every day that there's some things that you don't think you can accomplish unless you try. And then if you believe in yourself, obviously I was going to lift that colt when it got really big, but I could do it at that age because I needed to believe in myself. And obviously I had a supportive family that believed in me, and that's made all the difference.
Tremendous insight and inspiring words for our audience. I think we all need things around us that inspire us, that motivate us, that drive us to do great things. Because, yeah, luck is great. We've all been lucky, I think, at some times throughout our life, but nothing replaces hard work and the drive to be successful. I've really enjoyed visiting with you today. I think just a couple of closing discussion points. One is rural America. As we were talking earlier, I think there's a lot of people who don't know what rural America is all about or have a misconception about what it is. When I say those words, what do they mean to you?
So I am a strong believer in rural America and trying to lift up all the opportunities that I think are out there, and with the understanding that there are a lot of pieces that make it work for different individuals. You may want to go out and be on a farm, but maybe your spouse wants to have a work opportunity. So where are those other off-farm job opportunities? Where's the health insurance? Where's the daycare? Where is the restaurant when you want to go out once in a while? So a lot of those things go hand in hand in terms of making rural America successful. I'm fortunate that in this area, we've got that. Where I grew up in Marengo, Iowa, we're just rebuilding a swimming pool there to, again, make it more family friendly. And I'm still a big believer in trying to lift up that community as well. It truly does take a village of resources to make rural America a place where a lot of people want to come and work. And it's just beautiful. I mean, as we're sitting here today, I can look out my window. I have a bald eagle that flies over my cove several times, and he's been busy this morning. So you cannot underestimate the value of being out in the spaces that rural America, the beauty that it entails, and the wonderful people that you find that are just so friendly and eager to help you in so many ways.
Very well said. That's great perspective. Hey, what else would you like to share with our Outdrive audience today that you think they might find interesting or maybe even inspiring?
So I would encourage anybody who wants to start their own business to work with different mentors who maybe have been there or work with agencies. There's a small business development center. I think you'll find that there are a lot of folks that want to encourage entrepreneurialism in rural America and America more broadly. And to just reach out to as many people. I'd be happy to talk to anybody and see if, you can create a viable business model. The model I have might not work for everybody. Conversely, I could have perhaps scaled faster and bigger if I would have taken out a large loan. So you got to find your space and your peace with your space so that you're comfortable and understanding. I mean, there's some lean months. There's some times where you sit there and you wait for the checks to arrive and you're like, okay, this is going to work. So thank goodness we've been able to build, but you start out and it can be scary at times, but I think you'll find a reward worth the time and the effort that you've put into it.
I agree with everything you've just said. Good times and sometimes lean times. But those are very inspiring words, and I thank you for those. And I thank you for being with us today. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and hearing about what you guys are all about.
Well, thank you, Cliff. It was good to make the connection, and maybe we'll see you down at the lake sometime or in Sedalia.
I look forward to that. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Sara Wyant, founder and president of Agri-Pulse. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on Outdrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to ecallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, Outthink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.